One's a cheater, always a cheater. That's what they say, right? Well, when my ex thought she could juggle me and another guy, I decided to test that theory in the most brutal way possible. Picture this. She's standing alone late at night, waiting for a prince who never comes. The buses stop running, her phone buzzing with empty apologies, and when the truth finally hits her, it's too late. Her romantic night turned into a 3-hour walk of shame, and for me, the sweetest revenge of my life. If you've ever felt the sting of betrayal, or if you've ever wished you could serve justice to someone who underestimated you, smash that like button right now. Subscribe for more stories where karma isn't just real, it's engineered. And drop a comment telling me the most satisfying revenge you've ever witnessed. Trust me, you're going to want to stick around for this one. Let's dive in. You know how people say love makes you blind. Well, I think I was damn near blindfolded when I met her. Let's call her S. From the very beginning, there was a spark, a natural connection that felt easy, smooth, like the kind of thing you only see in rom-coms. She was gorgeous. Not cute or pretty, but stop you in your tracks stunning. A solid 9 out of 10, maybe even more on the right day. And me? I couldn't believe my luck. We hovered in that weird gray area for months. The friends but not friends limbo. You know the stage. Too much flirting to be just buddies. Not enough commitment to be official. For 6 long months, I tried to play it cool. Then one night, she drops the L-bomb. Out of nowhere. I love you. Those 3 words changed everything. And of course, I said it back. Because at that moment, I thought I meant it. For the next year, things seemed perfect. We dated, we laughed. We did all the couple stuff you'd expect. Sure, we had small arguments, but what couple doesn't? For a while, I let myself believe this was it, that I had found someone who was smart, funny, beautiful, and mine. But here's the thing about perfection. It has cracks. And sometimes, all it takes is one slip to see the whole illusion crumble. It started with a Facebook comment. Something harmless. I wrote a cute, cheesy line under her picture, just being a supportive boyfriend. Then, out of nowhere, this guy swoops in. His comment wasn't just playful, it was confident. Too confident. He said something like, "You're too slow, bro. I'm Prince Charming." That might not sound like much, but the way he wrote it, it had this edge. The kind of confidence that doesn't come from just scrolling past someone's profile. It screamed, "We've been talking." My stomach dropped. You know that gut instinct that screams when something isn't right? Yeah, that's what hit me. So I confronted her. Straight up. "Who is this guy?" She brushed it off immediately. "Oh, we're just friends. We've only been talking for a month." But I wasn't stupid. There was something in her tone, the way she avoided my eyes, the way she tried too hard to make it sound casual. So I laid it out for her, crystal clear. Either you cut him off or I walk. No yelling, no begging, just a simple choice. And guess what? She chose him. "He's a really great guy," she said. "A really great guy?" That's all it took to throw away a year of what I thought was love? That's when it hit me. She wasn't in this for me. She was in this for whatever attention made her feel good in the moment. So I walked. Cold, clean break. I wasn't going to be someone's second choice. But here's where it gets messy, because cheaters have a way of coming back when their great guy turns out not to be so great. About a month later, guess who shows up cry at my door? Yep, S. Tears streaming down her face, the whole "I made a mistake" routine. She told me she loved me, that we were meant to be together, that the other guy was just some jerk who used her and left. Which, by the way, was exactly what I suspected. Part of me wanted to slam the door in her face right then and there. But another part, the curious part, wanted to see just how deep her lies went. So I gave her one last chance. But with a condition. If you say you love me, there's no going back. No more games. No more lies. She swore up and down that this time was different, that I could trust her. And for a while, I played along. I pretended to believe her. But deep down, I knew, once a cheater, always a cheater. That's when the idea hit me. If she wanted to play games, fine. I'd play one better. The birth of Matt Vanguard. For anyone who plays Dota 2, you'll recognize the name. It's an item in the game. For me, it became the perfect alias for the perfect trap. I created a fake profile, spent hours curating it, found a stash of pictures from some ridiculously handsome guy online, built a believable backstory, added friends, likes, even random status updates to make it seem real. And then I added her. At first, it was just small talk, but very quickly she was hooked. She started flirting with Matt. She gave him her number. She even set up a date. Meanwhile, with me, the real me, she was swearing she was done with cheating, that she was loyal, that she loved me. The audacity made my blood boil. Imagine someone looking you in the eye, saying you're their everything, while secretly calling another man babe. Except here's the kicker. I didn't even make Matt charming. In fact, I went out of my way to make him sound kind of like a jerk. When she called him babe, he snapped back, "Don't call me that again. I'm not your babe." And still, she'd chase him. That's when I knew. It wasn't about love for her. It was about validation, about attention. She didn't care who it came from. And that made my decision easy. If she wanted Matt, then she was going to meet Matt, only not in the way she expected. So here's how I set the stage. I knew her schedule inside and out. She was in school at the time, and she relied heavily on the bus to get around. Her classes usually ran late into the evening, and she'd always be in this awkward position of either catching the last bus or needing someone to give her a ride. That's when Matt swooped in to save the day. On the fake profile, I made sure Matt came across as wealthy, busy, and just a little out of reach. Exactly the kind of man someone like her would find irresistible. He wasn't begging for her time. He wasn't desperate. If anything, he acted like her attention was an inconvenience. And the sad part? She lapped it up. She started telling Matt about her classes, about how late she got out, about how buses were a pain. And conveniently, Matt offered to pick her up one night. He even promised to take her on what she thought would be the most romantic date of her life. Now, in reality, Matt had no fancy car, no romantic dinner planned, no intention of showing up. What I did have was patience and the cold, calculated desire to let her dig her own grave. The night came. She got out of class, buzzing with excitement, texting Matt to see if he was close. Meanwhile, I, her real boyfriend, the one she swore she was loyal to, asked her if she wanted to hang out. Just a casual invite. Her response? "Oh, I have an extracurricular thing tonight. My friend's giving me a ride home." The blatant lie stung. Not because I still cared. No, by that point, my feelings were burned out. But because it confirmed everything I suspected. She could look me in the eye, tell me she loved me, and then spin a lie without missing a beat. I laughed to myself. She thought she was being clever. Meanwhile, she was texting Matt. Her, "Hey, are you almost here? If not, I need to take the bus." They stopped running soon. You could almost feel the impatience in her words, the little undertone of annoyance. She didn't want to miss this perfect guy picking her up. She wanted the fantasy. So Matt replied, "Yeah, sorry, had to do some overtime. Leaving now." And just like that, she melted again. Her, "Okay, can't wait to see you." Smiley face. I sat there, staring at the messages, grinning ear to ear. She was so predictable. Now, here's where I got creative. Instead of just ghosting her immediately, I decided to drag it out, build the tension, let her stew in her own choices. Time passed. 10 minutes. 20. 30. She texted again. Her, "Hey, are you close? I really don't want to miss the last bus." Matt, crap, just got pulled over. I shouldn't have been speeding, but I felt bad for being late. Sad face. The beauty of that excuse? It was perfect. It made her think he cared. It gave her hope. But it also added frustration. And frustration, as anyone who's been strung along knows, can break a person down faster than outright rejection. She responded with 3 dots. I could practically hear her sighing, rolling her eyes, shifting from foot to foot as she stood outside in the cool night air. Every bus that pulled away without her on it, another nail in the coffin. But she kept waiting. Minutes stretched into hours. I made Matt send the occasional apology, always keeping her hooked, dangling the carrot just out of reach. By the second hour, she was livid. Her messages started to lose the sweet tone. They got shorter, sharper. Wow, seriously? Get here as soon as possible. Her disappointment was like fuel for me, because I knew exactly how this would end. Finally, when she was past the point of patience, when she was standing there alone and fuming, I pulled the trigger. Matt sent one last message. Sorry, I don't go on dates with lying whores. What? What are you talking about? And that's when the mask came off. This isn't Matt. This is me. The guy you swore you loved while sneaking around with someone else. The guy you lied to tonight, telling me you were at some extracurricular thing while you were waiting for a stranger. I set this whole thing up. And guess what? You failed the test. The silence after that message was delicious. For a second, I thought she might drop it completely. But then she fired back, desperate, scrambling to explain. Wait, what? No, I wasn't actually going to meet him. I was just curious. It's not what you think. That line, it's not what you think. God, if I had $1 for every time a cheater tried that excuse, I'd be rich. I didn't even bother engaging. I sent her one final text. Don't talk to me anymore, and I suggest you start walking. I think you miss your bus. And with that, I put my phone down. The image of her, standing alone outside her school, realizing there would be no Matt, no ride, no safety net, was more satisfying than anything I could have imagined, because I knew exactly what was coming next. A long, cold, humiliating 3-hour walk of shame all the way home. She had no idea I knew her bus schedule. No idea that I planned it so she'd be stranded. No idea that every step she took that night was me reclaiming my power. You know how people talk about karma? About how life eventually serves you back exactly what you put into it. That night, watching her dig her own grave, was karma in its purest form. Because here's what happened next. She missed her last bus, just like I knew she would. By the time she realized Matt wasn't coming, it was too late. Her campus emptied out. The parking lot grew quiet. The streetlights hummed. And she was stuck. No ride. No safety net. No backup plan. Her only option? Walk. Now, this wasn't some short, breezy stroll. Her apartment was over 3 hours away on foot. 3 long hours of darkness, of replaying every text, of feeling the anger boil inside her. Every step she took. I imagine her muttering under her breath, hating me, hating herself, hating the fact that she'd been caught. And the best part? She couldn't tell anyone. How could she explain it? Oh, I stood up my boyfriend for a fake date with another guy, but it turned out the other guy was my boyfriend, and he left me stranded in the middle of the night. Yeah, not exactly a story you want circulating. So she walked, alone, and I went to bed that night smiling harder than I had in months. The next day, I expected an explosion, angry texts, accusations, something. But you know what I got? Silence. She didn't message me, didn't call, nothing. And that silence told me everything I needed to know. She was humiliated, completely broken. Because cheaters, they hate one thing above all else, being exposed. Weeks passed, then months. Life moved on for me. I focused on myself, friends, hobbies, work. And honestly, I felt lighter, like I had shed this massive weight I didn't even know I was carrying. But of course, people like her never stay gone forever. Months later, out of nowhere, she reached out. A long, apologetic message. She said she'd been thinking about everything that happened, that it kept replaying in her mind, that she regretted how she treated me. I stared at my screen, debating whether to ignore her completely, but curiosity won. So I responded, calm, detached. I appreciate the apology. I wrote, I'm willing to be friends, but I have a girlfriend now, and even if I didn't, I wouldn't date you again. Now here's the kicker. I didn't actually have a girlfriend. I just wanted her to feel what I felt. Replaced, irrelevant, dismissed. And it worked. She replied quickly, saying she understood. For a while, we kept things casual as friends. But eventually, the conversation circled back to that night, the night of her humiliation. And that's when she said it. She admitted that her 3-hour walk of shame was the worst she had ever felt in her entire life. Hearing that, it was like dessert after a 5-star meal. Not because I wanted her to suffer forever, but because I needed to know she got it, that she understood the weight of what she had done. That betrayal has consequences. Looking back, that night wasn't just about revenge. It wasn't just about making her walk home. It was about taking my power back. For months, I had been second-guessing myself. Was I not enough? Was I too slow, too boring, too plain compared to the so-called Prince Charming? But watching her crumble under the weight of her own choices, that was validation. Proof that I wasn't the problem. She was. And here's the thing I want everyone listening to remember. Betrayal doesn't define you. Being cheated on doesn't mean you're unworthy. It doesn't mean you're less. If anything, it means the other person couldn't handle what real commitment looks like. So when people say once a cheater, always a cheater, believe them. Because my story, it started with heartbreak, but it ended with the most satisfying walk of shame I've ever orchestrated. And you know what? I don't regret a single second. Not the fake profile, not the dragged-out texts, not the 3-hour punishment disguised as a romantic date. Because some lessons in life, they can't be taught gently. They have to be learned the hard way. And for her, that hard way was one long, lonely walk in the dark. The thing about betrayal is that it doesn't happen all at once. It's not like someone just wakes up one morning and decides, hey, I'll ruin my partner's trust today. No, it's slow. It's subtle. It's in the way they hide their phone screen just a little too quickly. It's in the excuses that don't quite add up. It's in a friend who comments too confidently on their pictures. And deep down, you always feel it before you know it. When I think back to my relationship with S, I can see the warning signs crystal clear. There were moments I ignored because I wanted so badly to believe she was different, that we were different. She had this way of making you feel like you were the only person in the room. The way she'd tilt her head when she laughed. The way she'd lock eyes with you like she was memorizing your face. And man, it worked. It hooked me. But here's the dangerous part about people like her. They're not just cheating on you. They're performing for you. They want you convinced, devoted, blind. Because the tighter you cling to the fantasy, the easier it is for them to slip away unnoticed. Looking back, I realized she was addicted. Not to love, not a connection, but to attention. It didn't matter who gave it to her, as long as someone did. And if one person wasn't enough, she'd stack them like cards in a deck, pulling whichever one made her feel powerful in that moment. That's why the Facebook comments shook me so hard. It wasn't just some random guy being flirty. No, his confidence told me everything. Confidence like that comes from encouragement, from private conversations, from her giving him just enough to believe he had a shot. And the second I confronted her, the second I forced her to choose, she didn't hesitate. She didn't fight for me. She didn't cry or plead. She just said he's a really great guy. That's when I realized I was disposable to her, replaceable. And let me tell you, there is no pain quite like realizing someone you poured your time, trust, and love into sees you as nothing more than an option. It hollowed me out. For days after that breakup, I walked around in a haze. Food tasted bland. Music sounded dull. Even my friends' jokes couldn't pull me out of it. I wasn't just sad. I was questioning my entire worth. Was I not exciting enough? Not attractive enough? Not ambitious enough? That's the part about betrayal people don't talk about. It doesn't just hurt your heart. It claws at your identity. It makes you doubt who you are. So when she came crawling back a month later, sobbing about how the other guy was such a jerk and how she realized I was the one, something inside me snapped. On the surface, I played it cool. I made her swear up and down that she loved me, that she was serious this time. I nodded, pretended to believe her. But in the back of my mind, gears were turning. Because I didn't just want to walk away anymore. No, I wanted her to feel what I had felt. That deep, gut-wrenching doubt. That sting of being played. And that's why Matt Vanguard was born. You have to understand, creating that fake profile wasn't just about tricking her. It was about reclaiming control, about saying, you don't get to be the only one who manipulates here. You don't get the last laugh. And honestly, watching her fall for it so easily was both infuriating and validating. Infuriating, because it confirmed she was lying straight to my face again. Validating, because it proved once and for all that I wasn't crazy. My instincts had been dead on. She wasn't loyal. She wasn't committed. She was just addicted to attention, even from a stranger she barely knew. The fact that she could call me at night, swear her undying love, then turn around and text Matt sweet nothings, that told me everything. And here's where it got dark for me. Every time she texted him, every time she got excited about the fake date, I felt this cold satisfaction settle into my bones. I'd been the victim once. Never again. This time, I was the one pulling the strings. I wasn't just catching her in a lie. I was orchestrating her downfall. And in some twisted way, it felt like balance being restored. You see, when someone betrays you, they steal more than trust. They steal time. They steal your peace. They steal the version of yourself that existed before the betrayal. And revenge, it doesn't give you all that back, but it gives you something else. Closure. That night when she waited for Matt, I wasn't just setting her up for humiliation. I was reclaiming every sleepless night I'd spent wondering where I stood. I was reclaiming every moment of insecurity, every question mark she left hanging. By the time she realized she'd missed her bus, by the time she realized the fantasy man wasn't coming, the roles had flipped. For the first time in our relationship, she was powerless, and I was in control. The night of the revenge is still burned into my memory, like it happened yesterday. It was a crisp evening, one of those nights where the air feels sharper than usual, carrying that faint hum of electricity from the streetlights. Her classes ended around 9:30, and she'd already told me she had extracurricular stuff that would keep her busy afterward. Of course, that was a lie. I knew exactly what she was doing. She left the building around 9:45, backpack slung over her shoulder, her phone glowing in her hand. I pictured her walking out, heart pounding with excitement, texting Matt to see if he was nearby. Her, hey, are you almost here? The buses don't run forever, you know. I had been waiting for that message all day. My fingers hovered over the keyboard as I sent the first delay. Matt! Yeah, sorry. Had to do some overtime at work. Just finishing up. Be there soon. In my mind, I could see the smile spread across her face. That little mix of relief and anticipation. She probably found a bench near the bus stop, cracked open her notebook, pretending to study while her mind was buzzing with fantasies of the so-called dream guy. Meanwhile, I sat at home, calm as ever, watching the trap unfold. The first 15 minutes were easy for her. She was still excited, still hopeful. She probably texted her friends, maybe even posted something vague online about waiting for someone special. But as the minutes stretched into half an hour, that excitement started to sour. Her, hey, just making sure you're still coming? Matt, on my way. Traffic's insane tonight. A harmless lie. Enough to buy me another 30 minutes. And so she waited. The buses came and went. The parking lot slowly emptied as other students were picked up by their real boyfriends, their actual friends, or drove themselves home. She sat there, clinging to her phone, every pair of headlights making her glance up in hope. But every time a car pulled in, it wasn't Matt. And with each disappointment, the weight in her chest grew heavier. An hour passed. Now she was irritated. Her, are you seriously not here yet? I'm about to miss the last bus. That's when I twisted the knife. Matt, crap, I just got pulled over. I was speeding because I didn't want you waiting too long. Sad face. It was a perfect excuse. It made me look like I cared, while also dragging things out longer. Her reply came fast. Her, seriously? Ugh. Well, just get here as soon as you can. I could imagine her slamming her phone down on her lap, huffing into the cold air, glancing nervously down the road, as if she could will me into existence. By the second hour, her tone had shifted completely. Her, wow, you're unbelievable. Are you actually coming or not? But even then, she stayed. That's what blew my mind. Instead of cutting her losses and walking away, she chose to wait. That's how badly she wanted this fantasy. That's how desperate she was for validation. And me? I was savoring every second, because I remembered all the times I had waited on her. The times I had sat by my phone, wondering why she wasn't responding. The nights she'd made excuses about being too busy, while she was clearly giving her attention to someone else. Now, the tables were turned. She was the one left in the dark. She was the one who didn't know what was going on. She was the one feeling small, disposable, powerless. Finally, after nearly 3 hours, when I knew she was exhausted, freezing and seething, I dropped the mask. Matt, sorry, I don't go on dates with lying whores. The reply came instantly. Her, what? What are you talking about? And then the final blow. Me! This isn't Matt. This is me. The guy you've been lying to. The guy you swore you loved while secretly chasing another guy you've never even met. I set this whole thing up to see if you were still the same unfaithful person I walked away from. And guess what? You are. I could practically hear the panic in her silence. She must have stared at the screen, her stomach dropping, her face going pale. Because in that moment, she knew. She was caught. Wait, no, you don't understand. I wasn't actually going to meet him. I was just curious. It's not what you think. That excuse, that pathetic, desperate excuse. I smirked as I typed my last words. Me! Don't talk to me anymore. And I suggest you start walking. I think you miss your bus. And with that, I turned my phone off. She had no car, no backup ride, and the buses were long gone. That left her with one option, a long, lonely 3-hour walk home in the dark. Every step she took that night was justice. Every ache in her legs, every shiver from the cold, every angry thought bouncing around her skull, that was her payment. Payment for every lie, every broken promise. Every moment she made me feel small. And as cruel as it sounds, I felt euphoric, because betrayal leaves you powerless. But that night, I had all the power. She thought she was meeting Prince Charming. Instead, she met the consequence of her own choices. And me? I didn't just get closure. I got the most satisfying revenge I could ever imagine. For days after that night, I didn't hear a word from her. Not a text, not a call, nothing. And that silence, that was golden. Because when a manipulative person suddenly goes quiet, it usually means one of two things. Either they're too embarrassed to face you, or they're plotting a way to spin the story so they don't look like the villain. I imagine her walking into class the next morning, sleep-deprived and sore from the 3-hour trek home. Maybe she tried to play it off, told her friends some version of events that didn't make her look completely pathetic. But the truth? She couldn't hide it from herself. Because every time she replayed that night in her head, every time she thought about standing there under those flickering streetlights, waiting for someone who never came, she knew exactly what it meant. She had been exposed. Her mask had slipped, and there was no taking that back. At first, she tried the avoidance tactic. No communication, no explanation, just radio silence, hoping maybe I'd cool off. Maybe I'd feel bad. Maybe I'd be the one to reach out. But I didn't. I went on with my life like she didn't even exist. And that, more than anything, drove her crazy. See, people like her don't fear losing you because of what they lose. They fear losing you because it means they no longer control the narrative. They can't spin it. They can't manipulate it. And for weeks, that's exactly what I denied her. Control. Then, like clockwork, the message came. Months had passed, and I had all but forgotten about her. Then suddenly, a long wall of text popped up on my phone one night. She poured her heart out. Apologies, explanation, self-pity. She admitted that the whole thing had been replaying in her head over and over. She said she couldn't stop thinking about it, that she regretted everything. And I'll admit, there was a part of me that felt a twinge of satisfaction reading those words, because it meant the revenge had worked. It wasn't just a fleeting embarrassment for her. It was something that stuck, something that haunted her. But I wasn't about to let her off the hook. So I kept my reply short, calm, almost detached. I appreciate the apology. I'm willing to be friends. But I have a girlfriend now, and even if I didn't, I wouldn't date you again. Of course, the girlfriend was a lie. But I wanted her to know she'd been replaced, that she no longer had that power over me. Her reply came fast. I understand. Simple. But I knew it burned her. For a while, we kept this shallow friendship. Mostly surface-level stuff, occasional small talk. But every now and then, the conversation circled back to that night. And one day, she finally admitted it. That 3-hour walk home was the worst I've ever felt in my life. I nearly laughed when I read that, because while she thought she was confessing weakness, what she was really doing was handing me closure on a silver platter. That walk of shame wasn't just her worst night. It was my best. Not because I enjoy seeing people suffer, but because I needed her to feel the weight of her actions. I needed her to know that betrayal has a cost. And the fact that she still remembered it months later, that it still haunted her, that told me the message landed. Here's the thing about cheaters. They don't just break your trust. They chip away at your sense of reality. They gaslight you, make you question your instincts, twist the truth until you start wondering if you're the crazy one. And that's why revenge, in this case, felt so sweet. Because it wasn't just about payback. It was about proving to myself that I wasn't crazy. That my gut instincts had been right all along. Every lie she told me, that we're just friends, the I'm busy tonight, the I wasn't actually going to meet him, was exposed under the harsh light of reality. She couldn't gaslight her way out of a 3-hour walk home. She couldn't manipulate her way around the fact that she chose to wait for Matt instead of taking the last bus. For once, the consequences were undeniable. But here's the irony. While she saw that night as the worst experience of her life, I saw it as a turning point. Because after that, I stopped questioning my worth. I stopped asking myself if I wasn't good enough. I stopped letting her or anyone dictate how much value I brought to a relationship. Instead, I learned the most important lesson betrayal can teach you. Sometimes, the best closure doesn't come from forgiveness. It comes from justice. And justice, in this case, was a cold, lonely walk home under flickering streetlights. When people ask me if I regret what I did, I always tell them the same thing. Absolutely not. Because that night, I didn't just expose her. I reclaimed myself. I went from being a guy she could lie to, cheat on, and manipulate, to being the guy who orchestrated the most humiliating night of her life. And while she carried that shame, I carried something else. Peace. You know, the funny thing about revenge stories is that people always want to know the after. Like, what happened to her? Did she change? Did she ever find someone else? Did she ever realize the full weight of what she lost? And honestly, I don't know. I don't really care. Because the truth is, revenge isn't really about them. It's about you. When someone cheats, they don't just betray your trust. They shatter your foundation. They make you question yourself, your worth, your instincts, your judgment. And in the aftermath, the hardest thing isn't getting over them. It's getting over the version of yourself they left behind. The insecure version, the powerless version, the broken version. And that's why what I did wasn't just about humiliating her. It was about reclaiming that version of myself she had tried to destroy. Because here's the reality about cheaters. Most of them aren't looking for love. They're looking for attention, for validation, for that cheap, temporary thrill of knowing they can have something or someone outside of what they already committed to, and they'll justify it every which way. It's not serious. It doesn't mean anything. You're overreacting. But at the end of the day, cheating isn't about accidents or misunderstandings. It's about choice. A conscious choice to betray someone who trusted you. That's what made my revenge so satisfying. I didn't just expose her. I forced her to face her own choices in the most brutal, undeniable way possible. I think about that 3-hour walk sometimes. Not out of guilt, but out of clarity. Because every mile she trudged home in the cold, every step she took under those empty streetlights, was a reflection of her decisions. She chose to flirt behind my back. She chose to chase after a stranger. She chose to lie. And in the end, those choices led her exactly where she deserved to be, alone, in the dark, with nothing but her own thoughts. People call it cruel. I call it balance. But here's the twist. The real victory wasn't her humiliation. It was my transformation. See, before all this, I used to think love meant forgiving everything. I thought loyalty meant staying even when someone didn't deserve it. I thought that if I just gave enough, proved myself enough, held on tight enough, they'd finally see my value. But that's not love. That's self-destruction. Love without respect is just chains. Loyalty without honesty is just slavery. And if there's one thing I learned from this entire mess, it's this. When someone shows you their lack of respect, you don't beg for scraps, you walk away. Or, if you're like me, you make them walk instead. Now, here's the part most people won't admit. Revenge doesn't fix everything. It doesn't erase the betrayal. It doesn't undo the pain. It doesn't magically rebuild your trust in people. But what it does do, if done right, is remind you of your own power. And sometimes that reminder is all you need to heal. Because healing isn't about forgetting. It's about remembering who you were before someone tried to convince you that you weren't enough. That night gave me that gift. The gift of seeing her crumble. Yes, but more importantly, the gift of realizing I never needed her validation in the first place. And if you're listening to this, wondering what the lesson is, here it is, plain and simple. Don't waste your life waiting for someone who's already shown you they don't value it. Don't keep handing out chances to people who see you as disposable. And don't let anyone convince you that their betrayal is your fault. Because cheaters don't cheat because you're not enough. They cheat because they aren't enough for themselves, for the truth, for real love. When I think back now, I don't think of her face. I don't think of her laugh. I don't even think of the betrayal anymore. What I remember is the silence after I turned my phone off. That calm, quiet moment where, for the first time in a long time, I wasn't the one waiting. She was. And that right there was freedom. So, to answer the question, did she ever change? Did she ever regret? Did she ever grow? Maybe. Maybe not. But that's her story, not mine. My story is about the night I stopped being her victim and became my own hero. And that's the beauty of revenge. It's not about destroying them. It's about rebuilding you. Revenge stories always end the same way. The villain is exposed. The victim rises. Justice is served. But here's the truth. Real life is messier than that. There aren't clean endings. There aren't neat bows tied around betrayal. There aren't moments where the credits roll and you suddenly stop hurting. No, real revenge isn't about endings. It's about beginnings. Because the night I left her standing there, waiting for a man who didn't exist, wasn't the night her story ended. It was the night mine began. I remember sitting at home that night, staring at my phone as the notifications poured in, her messages, her calls, her desperation spilling across the screen. And for the first time, I didn't feel weak. I didn't feel trapped. I didn't feel like a fool. I felt free. Because every time her name lit up my phone, it wasn't a reminder of what I'd lost. It was a reminder of what I'd reclaimed. My dignity, my worth, my power. And once you taste that kind of freedom, you never go back. People sometimes ask me if I'd do it again. If I had the chance, would I pull the same stunt? Would I watch her walk 3 hours home in the cold again? And the answer is yes. 1,000 times yes. Not because I enjoy cruelty. Not because I think pain is something to celebrate, but because in that one act, I reminded myself and her that actions have consequences. You can lie, you can cheat, you can manipulate, but eventually the universe, or in this case, me, will hold you accountable. And when that accountability finally comes, it won't be loud. It won't be violent. It won't even be dramatic. It'll just be a quiet night under flickering streetlights, with nothing but your own choices echoing back at you. That's the thing people don't understand about revenge. They expect fireworks, explosions, chaos. But the best revenge? It's silence. It's watching them realize there's no one left to manipulate, no one left to lie to, no one left to believe their story. It's the sound of their world collapsing, not because you tore it down, but because you simply stepped out and let them face it alone. And that's exactly what she got. I don't think about her much anymore. But when I do, it's not with anger. It's not even with satisfaction. It's with a kind of strange gratitude. Because without her betrayal, I might have never found my strength. Without her lies, I might have never learned the value of truth. Without her games, I might have never realized how much I deserved better. She was the wound, but she was also the lesson. And lessons are worth more than love that was never real in the first place. So, if you've been betrayed, if you've been lied to, if you've been cheated on, let me leave you with this. Don't chase closure. Don't wait for apologies that will never come. Don't sit in the ruins of someone else's dishonesty, begging them to rebuild you. Instead, stand up, walk away, reclaim yourself. And if you're feeling bold, remind them that betrayal doesn't just vanish into the night. Sometimes it walks them home for 3 long hours under cold, empty sky. Because in the end, revenge isn't about breaking them. It's about proving they could never break you. And that night, that long, lonely walk, it wasn't just her punishment. It was my rebirth. So here's my final word. She thought she was playing a game. She thought she had me wrapped around her finger. She thought I'd be just another fool, another name on her list of people she could use and discard. But instead, she learned the hardest lesson of all. You don't betray someone who's willing to let you dig your own grave. Because when you do, they'll make sure you're the one who has to walk all the way home.